Hi everyone, I'm Julie Atri from Eli Food, and I have Lisa Levinson here. I'm so excited and honored to be talking with her. Lisa directs In Defense of Animals Sustainable Activism campaign, offering emotional and spiritual support for animal activists via a hotline support group and online events. Lisa organizes vegan spirituality groups and retreats to explore veganism as a spiritual practice. She co-organizes the Interfaith Vegan Coalition to help places of worship go vegan. And she co-founded Public Eye, Artists for Animals, to teach compassion for animals through the arts, and founded the Toad Detour to help migrate toads safely across the roads in Philadelphia. And I met Lisa a little while ago, and we hit it off right away. We obviously have, many commonalities. We're both vegan, and we really hit it off. And I really respect all the work that Lisa does. And so I wanted to really talk to her and have everyone benefit from her wisdom and her knowledge and her information. So yeah, I'll give the floor to you, Lisa. Tell us a little bit about what made you get involved with In Defense of Animals, and tell us a little bit about In Defense of Animals and what you guys do.
Sure. So it's lovely to be with you today. I'm so excited to have another great conversation with you, Julie.
Yes, thank you.
Some little background about, so In Defense of Animals is an animal rights organization that really fights for the rights and the habitats of animals, of the environment, and also to help people. So this organization has been around for about 30 years or more, actually, and it was founded by Dr. Elliot Katz, who's a veterinarian, and now at the helm is Dr. Marilyn Kruplik, who is a psychiatrist.
Yes.
And Marilyn has created this new vision for In Defense of Animals to really provide support services, because her background is as a psychiatrist, so she wanted to provide some support services for animal activists. So she's created several programs to really imbue activists with a lot of support. One of them, the one that I run, is called the Sustainable Activism campaign. And this one provides emotional and spiritual tools for animal activists. And so we have actually webinars that we run every week for activists and online support groups, just so that people can talk with one another and also hear from some of the leaders in our movement about ways that they can get some support. And we even have a support line where people can call us and talk to us about.
This is so exciting. People as a group, they need support, and they need to be able to talk to other people that are like-minded and, share their interests. And I think that's amazing.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's really helped a lot of people who live in remote areas, and they feel like they're the only vegan or the only animal activist in their area. And suddenly they have a whole new community. So we really want to provide all these resources for activists, because many times activists suffer from something called compassion fatigue or burnout, which is when they don't, they actually are feeling overwhelmed, and then they need to stop and take a break from doing their activism. So we're trying to provide support along the way so that activists can continue helping animals for the long haul.
Yeah, because it's really not supported. I mean, that kindness to animals and loving animals, loving pets and loving all animals is a completely different thing. You can be a pet lover and not be an animal lover, if you know what I mean. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes.
And in our society, people call themselves pet lovers, and then on the other hand, they are not questioning, like, hey, where's my food coming from? How do you find there's a correlation between people that truly love animals and people, that believe in, organizations like IDA and veganism, that people that are vegan, that there's some kind of correlation between the two, that once you recognize the fact once you really recognize your inner kindness toward another being, because humans aren't the only beings on earth, correct? Like
Yeah.
animals are also beings too. That once you realize that you start questioning, um, why am I eating meat, or questioning that the animal that I have as a pet, and the animal that I'm eating, it's pretty much the same thing. It literally is the same thing.
Yes, exactly. And there's a wonderful book that highlights this. It's called Why We, let's see, Eat um, Pigs, Wear Cows, and Love Dogs. So
Right.
that book, it's by Dr. Melanie Joy, and she's a wonderful advocate for animals and animal rights. And what she's done is coined the term carnism as explaining why we have this curious form of loving animals and eating other ones and how we can really live with that internal divide that
Oh,
goes on
wow.
within all of us.
Thanks for
But
that
that's
resource.
yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
book. And so we provide resources like that on our animal activist support line, where people can call us and reach out for help. And if anybody does want that kind of support, the number there is 800-705-0425, and that's just a way you can call. We also have, you can reach us online too, at idausa.org/activist support. And you can chat with us online, you can text us, there's lots of ways to reach us, but we can help people who are struggling with some of these concepts. And even right now, we have something going on for February, which is our Activist Appreciation Month, which we're doing is we're going out there
I
and
love it. This is so great.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
we're
that's, I
trying
mean,
to,
this is so great. It's interesting that, it's interesting to me that a lot of times, people in general kind of distance themselves from animal, activists that support animal and that are for animals. And they, it's almost like, oh my God, here they are again or whatever. But in the real sense of life, it's I would think that there should be a curiosity about, like, hey, what are you doing? And the fact that we even have such activism is, constitute that we're living almost in a barbaric society to me, where I think it should be the other way around, where, like, most people should question, or, and I'm not trying to preach here, and I'm not trying to, tell people what they should do and shouldn't do, but I would think that it's a natural curiosity. Like when you look at a little child, they make the correlation very quickly. They make the correlation very quickly that, hey, this is, my pet dog. And then if they are actually shown, somebody eating an animal, they can put the dot, the two and two together. I mean, Paul McCartney said that if slaughterhouses had glass windows and glass doors, that everyone would be a vegan, or they definitely have a hard time, with the fact of what's on their plate and question it. And, and again, going back to the fact that having dogs as pets and eating pigs or eating cows doesn't make much sense. And then, we go to the extent of, there are other cultures that it's okay for them to eat dogs and we condemn them, yet, we don't look at ourselves, which is quite interesting. And, I'm actually going to look up the book that you just talked about, and really, I'm interested in finding out what makes somebody do that. How can somebody do that?
yeah, it's a great resource.
Yeah.
And that's
And
why we do have a lot of different campaigns at In Defense of Animals to try to address this. I mean, everything from a farmed animals campaign to a dog
yeah,
meat campaign to end the dog meat trade, and to really look at how we have these two distinct uh, issues in these different cultures, and to be able to advocate for animals, it's really important to understand the cultural realities that
yeah.
go on there.
And Lisa, I know that you're a vegan,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I want to talk a little bit about that. Just from your personal history and personal point of view, how long have you been a vegan, and why? I mean, I can assume why, but when did you have that turning point of like, okay, this is not okay for me. This is not my path.
Oh, sure. So I've been vegan for about 25 years, actually.
Yay!
And yeah, yeah. So I went vegetarian when I was in California. And I think for many of us, going vegetarian is like the first step. It's a
Of
huge
course.
decision.
Yeah.
And so at that time, I went vegetarian. I lived on a working farm I was doing environmental education. And so we did animals were born there and we raised them, and then they were also taken off to slaughter. And so that was really sad for me to see. So I made that choice to be vegetarian, and then I happened to move to Philadelphia for graduate school, and the vegetarians I met there were all macrobiotic. So if you're
Yes.
macrobiotic, then you're actually vegan by default because they don't eat any dairy products,
Right.
no processed sugar, and so that's really how I learned a lot about veganism and vegan cooking. But years later, I recognized that, oh, I'm vegan, not just a vegetarian
Like, oh, wait a
macrobiotic.
minute.
Yeah.
Right. And then what were some of your challenges? You know, like I know my story is a little bit different, in the sense that I was a vegetarian for the longest time of my life. And I wasn't, I was born a vegetarian. My family was vegetarian. So it was really easy. It was an easy transition and a very natural transition for me. But I know that a lot of families and a lot of people, or a good majority of the people, that's not, where they are, that they grew up eating meat and their families, grew up eating meat. So what were some of your challenges? Because I know you're the other, you're the other one, and your journey was definitely different than mine. So
Well, I would say that some of my challenges were probably working with my family on this because they were not a vegetarian or vegan, and so over the years I think they didn't understand me that well, and understand that this is related to my values, not just my preferences, and that for me this is a spiritual practice. Actually, veganism is about having compassion for all living beings. And in order to practice that, just like someone would practice meditation or practice another spiritual tradition,
right.
that's my practice is veganism. And so talking to my family about that, they think that I was limiting myself and that I was making choices that confined me or separated me actually from my family in their eyes. So we've had lots of discussions, and over the years I think they've come to understand me quite a bit better. But the initial struggles were for me mostly related to family issues. And again, there's another wonderful book, a second book by Dr. Melanie Joy, which is called Beyond Beliefs. And this book is specifically designed for vegans and non-vegans so that they can communicate with one another. So there's a lot of resources and tips in the book. It wasn't around when I was going through some of my issues with my family, but it certainly is helpful for many, many people thinking of family as a vegan ally rather than trying to convert them to veganism.
Right,
um,
right.
yeah,
Have
yes.
did your family ever think like, oh, Lisa's trying to tell us what to do, or trying to turn us on to this, vegan thing that she's on or whatever? Because I hear all kinds of, all kinds of stories and stuff like that. And like I think that's one of the areas where people find themselves, extremely challenged and confronted is, their families, and they don't understand like, oh, it's just a choice. And it's just a choice that if somebody's gonna eat meat, that now they're not. So it's not like a personal attack, but a lot of people do take it almost as a personal attack, that, oh, now you're eating this, so we can't hang out or whatever. It's like, okay, and has it been hard for you to hang out with other people that were your friends that aren't vegans?
That's a good question.
It kind of
Yeah.
goes both ways, right?
Yeah, it does go both ways. I would say that a lot of my close friends are vegan these days. I do, when I hang out with a friend that I've had for many, many years, I usually explain that I'm vegan and what that means to me. A lot of them are very understanding.
Yes.
And so that's been okay actually with friends when they understand what my needs are. And we generally will go to a vegan restaurant. Some of the issues I've had with my family are that they, rather than thinking I'm trying to convince them, they think that it's all about me and that every
Oh,
time we do something, it has to be my choice of where we go to a restaurant.
right,
And
right.
I try to explain it's not so much that I need to have my way. It's more that for me, it's a spiritual practice
Yes,
to be vegan. And so when I observe other people eating animals,
yes,
especially people who I care about, it's it's emotionally difficult, and also it feels um, as though I'm observing this atrocity in front of my
yes,
eyes, and so it
yes.
can be traumatic. So that's part of that understanding, is trying to communicate with them about that.
Yeah, and uh, I think a lot of times when you kind of have traveled and you've gone around the world of eating meat and not eating meat and being a vegetarian and then being a vegan and then finally settling somewhere, I think if you do end up settling on being vegan, and then it's really hard to, you do, it's really hard because you become so compassionate. I really find that um, eating whatever you eat really changes you at the cellular level and emotional level and compassionate level, where you really start to feel differently. And it's a hard thing to describe. It's something that you can feel. Do you think that?
Yes, well, actually, I've had people come up to me because I also run a movement, a forum for discussion called Vegan Spirituality, which explores veganism as a spiritual practice. And I've had people come up to me and tell me, wow, I became spiritual when I became vegan. They were not concerned about those issues before, and then suddenly they became more heart-based.
Yes.
And also, another person that many of you may know already, James Aspey, he is an animal advocate. He speaks widely around the world. He said that a lot of the videos of cruelty in the slaughterhouses didn't affect him until he became vegan. After he became vegan, it's like his heart opened up from eating plants instead of animals. And because of that big shift, he was able to suddenly feel more when he observed those videos. It was very difficult for him afterwards. So I think that shows that there is a shift when we
Definitely.
do eat this way. And of course, in the yogic traditions,
Yes.
they have the sattvic
Yes.
diet, which is intended for those who are practicing spirituality, and that diet is basically vegetarian.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, with the Vedic diets and stuff, in those times they did eat dairy, but their dairy was coming from a completely different source
Mhm.
than what our dairy comes from today. So that's really extremely important to understand, um, that their dairies were coming from their cows that lived in their house, and, lived in their backyard almost. So yeah, it's really really interesting. And the fact that I have a 9-year-old daughter and she's a vegetarian, and I totally see the difference, in children that are and that aren't. And and I also see the fact that children gravitate, when they're little kids. So I'll tell you a story that we lived um, in we lived in this one area, and then we had a neighbor who, their child was a year older than Uma when Uma was about 1 year old, or so their child was eating solid food and stuff like that. So he was being introduced to eating food, and when their parents would feed them meat, feed the child meat, this child did not want to eat any. And the parents were meat eaters. So they kept on introducing the child, to eat meat over and over and over and over again. And the child was extremely, the child did not want to eat any meat. So eventually, I mean, I don't know, we moved away and I don't know what exactly happened with the child, but that kind of goes to show that, as a child, if you are exposed to many different types of diets, which most people are not, that truly only then you can choose, and truly only then you can say that, okay, I chose my own diet, right? And I believe that as clean as children are, that they, they might choose vegetables over meat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think that's often the case for many children when especially if they're not exposed to a lot of processed food and their taste buds are kind of all natural, they might
Yes.
like a piece of fruit. They might enjoy that and the taste of it and the vegetables.
Well, I can tell you one thing, when, my daughter brings her friends to our house, they eat. They eat my lentils, they eat my bread, they make plenty of comments, and lots of good comments. Oh, I love this, and love that. It's interesting. Another story that I want to share, because you told me that you were working with a farm and living at a farm. We, as you know, that I've gone back and forth from eating meat to not eating meat to, so we used to go to this farm, local farm, to get eggs. And so I just happened to start talking with with one of the people there, the farmers there. And I was just like, wow, it's quite interesting that, I don't know where the thought came from, but I was just telling him that it's quite interesting that, these hens let you guys just grab their eggs and go. And, that that it doesn't bother the hens that you're taking their eggs, because, you go in there and take their eggs. And so he shared something extremely interesting to me, which, totally turned me around yet some more, where he said that, well, most hens understand that we're taking their eggs. And he said this one particular hen, when I go in there to grab the eggs that she had laid, she spreads out her wings, and she does not want me to take the eggs. And I have to fight with her, literally. She thinks that these eggs are going to hatch, but they're not going to hatch. But she doesn't. I'm like, yeah, but she doesn't know the difference between the two. And he's like, no, she doesn't. But this hen would spread out her wings and try to block him from coming in or leaving with her eggs. And that made me decide that, okay, I do not want to eat eggs anymore, because you're eating something that a being, is not willing to give you. So, with a plant, it's completely different. You grow a plant, the plant bears the fruit, and you take the fruit and you eat the fruit, or you eat the vegetable, which is the fruit of the plant. But in the case of a hen that does not want to give up her eggs, or in the case of a pig who does not want to die, or a cow who does not want to die, that food is not really food.
Yeah, that's part of their body, or part of their their offspring's bodies. I mean, these are really interesting. I mean, there's so many things about animals and people. We're really in a process of changing our values about animals. And like a long time ago, they had animals where they would eat parts of the animal, and then the other parts, the animal would later they would eat another part of the animal. Right. So this was a practice done a couple thousand years ago, and now we don't do that anymore. So I think that
why was that?
Yeah, it's something I read about, actually. I thought, wow, that's just incredible. They would eat parts of the cow, and also in some parts of Africa today, even they do, like, they drain the blood of the cow, and they make all kinds of things with it. The cow stays alive, but they do, so they're having part of the animal while the animal's still living. It's a very, very unusual for us to conceptualize that, because that's not our
Right.
tradition. But I think that over time, some of the things that we thought of as humane have changed. And so now I'm thinking in the future, people who look back at us will say, whoa, they ate all these parts of animals, and it will no longer be the case someday.
Yes, I totally believe that. I believe that, we are embarking upon a future, which is a bright future and amazing, as where people are going to, or they already are, accepting uh, eating vegetables and fruits in the same capacity that a lot of the people eat meat today. And kids, I know kids that are, turning around and they're making the connection between things and between food and animals, and they are choosing. I have friends and their kids have told them, like, look, I'm not going to eat any meat because animals are my friends. They're not some, yeah, seriously. It's I have a friend, my daughter's friend, and the little child has told the parents, the parents are not vegan, not, the daughter is vegetarian, and she just got up one day and said, look, I'm not going to do this, and which is great. So I really think you're correct in saying that, there will be a time when we will look back and say, oh wow, really, humans ate meat? That just doesn't make any sense. So, and I think it's going to be a lot sooner than anyone thinks. I mean, vegan market is growing, and like um, major companies are taking part and jumping onto the bandwagon of, oh, okay, I don't know how greatly I agree with that part, but that is happening because that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother question and what they're doing and stuff like that. But as you know, that I'm a major advocate of eating local, eating farm to table, finding out where the nearest farmers market is, and eating organic. And since I've made that complete shift, it's interesting. We were just away for the weekend to Central California, and it's amazing that when you do eat organic all the time, and then you eat local and stuff like that, and then when you go away and you may not get that organic meal every single meal that you are eating, it's interesting how quickly your body realizes that, wait a minute, this is not what I eat. Right? And I was having this conversation with my family yesterday that when people eat just regular food, conventional food, and then they eat an organic meal, it's like it's no big deal. They're like, oh, I don't feel the difference. Because many people question, like, oh, do you really think organic food is really organic in the markets and stuff like that? People question that, and I'm like, of course it is, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to say that it is. You can't just say something is organic when it's not. It goes through lots of certification, it's a rigorous process. But when you have been eating organic, and when you have been a vegan, eating organic food, local food, and then when you don't get that, then you realize, okay, wait a minute, no, what I have been eating is organic, and what I have been eating is different than what I'm eating right now.
Yes, your body knows the difference.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I think also, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we are dealing with all these conversations of like, oh, you're not going to get enough protein if you don't eat meat. And that's like a myth. It's a myth that has been programmed into literally everyone from the meat market and the dairy market, where they want you to eat that stuff because that's their business. And if you don't, now their business is not flourishing. So I think there's a lot of information out there regarding that, and I think it's extremely exciting times.
Oh, definitely. It really is. And actually, one of the programs that In Defense of Animals started in the past couple of years is to help promote that transition to a plant-based lifestyle it's called actually Carnivores Anonymous, which,
Yes.
you know,
I love it.
yeah. And actually,
Yes.
Julie was a speaker for us. We have speakers who come to share their knowledge and wisdom with our groups. And the idea is that Carnivores Anonymous really looks at eating meat and dairy as addictions that we
Yes.
want to recover from. And so this Carnivores Anonymous provides us 12-step support for people who are interested in adopting a plant-based lifestyle. And they have in-person meetings. We also have a new online meeting that we've started. So you can check that out at Carnivores Anonymous on Facebook, but also .org.
Yeah, and that's also the program that I've been referring some of my people to, some of the people that I help. That I have a 4-week program where I take people onto we call it like the 4-week crash course to vegan. And it takes about 4 weeks to build a habit, and I take people through giving them information, shopping lists, recipes, and all kinds of different mentoring help and on the phone help to get them on the track of eating plant-based foods. And then Carnivores Anonymous is definitely, that's something that I've been promoting and telling people about, to doing and after the fact, to have that support system, because so many people come up to me and they tell me, oh, I went vegan, right? This has happened to me at least 24 times, where somebody would come up to me and they'd be like, oh, I went vegan and it's awesome. I love it. My body loves it. And then a month later, they would come back to me. The same person comes back to me and they tell me, look, it's so hard. I can't find anything to eat. So I decided that I'm just going to eat fish instead of going vegan, cold turkey, and then I'm going to come back around again. Now that happens because they don't have support. They didn't, do it the right way, where they didn't get the proper help. Yes, they're right. There is no support out there. Every restaurant you go to, they're not, even in Los Angeles, people ask me, what's the best vegan restaurant I can go to? And I tell them there is no 100% vegan, high nutrition restaurant in Los Angeles. It's incredible to me. But, to have that support, to have somebody, help you understand how you can not be hungry, or how you can manage your meals, and things like that is extremely important. And then having that community like Carnivores Anonymous, to have that community where if you do feel stressed out, or if you do feel, hey, I don't have any support, or I don't know what to eat, that there's a whole community there that you can always get some kind of help from everyone, or at least someone. So I'm super excited about Carnivores Anonymous, and I love the program. I love it.
Wonderful. Well, it's out there for everyone, and it's a great network of people, whether they're veg curious or
Yes.
new.
Vegetarians, I love it.
Yeah. They could be new to veganism or vegetarianism, yes. Or even somebody who just wants to find out more about it.
Yes.
Those people who have been vegan for a long time can also benefit too from being a mentor to others, or a sponsor to other people. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a joy having you, and the conversation's been amazing, and we should definitely do it again.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much. This is really an honor to participate. And I want to just encourage anyone who's curious about our programs. We have this Animal Activist Appreciation Month going on, and we've got all kinds of programs, including Carnivores Anonymous. So if you're curious, you can go to idausa.org/activist month, and then you'll see all of our programs for the month of February. But thank you so much. This is a treat to be on your show this month, and I look forward to reconnecting with you and to staying in touch with you about your program. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Have a wonderful evening.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye. Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.